Well, the process with WordTheatre is I get it. Cedering usually picks the stories and tries to, I think, match an actor with a story that isn't always. It doesn't feel like it's always directly on, as if like I'd be cast as some of these characters in the story. But there's some, I don't know. There's something that connects, whether it's, I don't know, there's an emotional parallel, or sometimes I'm closer to the characters than others, or age-wise or not, and sometimes I'm not. And then I read it over, and then Cedar and I usually get together once or twice, and that period of getting together is usually just being clear on each section of the story, emotionally clear, narratively clear, and just examining the story from all the angles and all possibilities, and then it's about, I think, making choices about how we're going to tell a story. Just like any character in a film, it can be played a lot of different ways. But I think what we're doing in that process is deciding how we're going to read it this time, and then maybe next time it'll be different. But that is something that happens as soon as you vocalize it. You're making a choice about how this story is going to be told. When you're reading it to yourself, it's still a little more general. There are different options of interpretation still up in the air. But when you read it aloud, choices are being made, and so the preparation process is just about making those choices. What was so attractive to me about WordTheatre is that it put the actors together with the writers, that had written these stories. And I got to hear, it didn't happen this time, but oftentimes what happens is I get to hear interpretations by actors, and then I get to hear the author's interpretation too. And so it provides a much richer, more colorful examination of the author's work, because you get a bunch of different voices, and then you also get his or her own voice, and so it helps me understand and appreciate the stories more, just because I can see people examining them from different angles. Reading out loud is a slightly different process. When I'm reading to myself, I am telling myself the story in a way, but as soon as I read it to another person, I have to be much more clear about what the story is I'm communicating. And so it really makes me examine the story more and look at every contour of the story, so that I know when I'm trying to communicate. And it's a different process than just acting in a film or a play, because for me, when you're doing that, when you're doing a movie or a play, it's like full immersion. You're in this imaginary world, and you're playing a different person, and obviously communicating to an audience, but you're doing it, indirectly. You're doing it by engaging in a scene. When you're reading a short story aloud, like at WordTheatre, first of all, there's a new voice that you don't use usually when in a movie, where you have the narrator's voice a lot of the times. And so that has a whole new set of dimensions. It can be another character. It's, what do they say? A homodiegetic narrator that will come in and out of the story, or it's a heterodiegetic and stays apart. And so that voice becomes something that's very unique to fiction and performing fiction or reading fiction aloud. And it's I'm much more conscious about telling a story. I feel more like a storyteller than a single part of a story.